So basically 2 days ago I asked you if you want to see a series of me covering my WROCs. Whoa! Hello everyone, and welcome to a brand new series on my channel, OCs on Sudrian Rails. In this series, we're gonna be taking a look at all of my original headcanon characters that I created for my AU of Sodor. Since I already covered Wellington in the second episode of School's Class Days, let's go check that if you want. There's no point of making an episode about him, so in the first episode of this series, we're gonna take a look at my second OC created, David. David is an engine in charge of the mail train, and he has quite an attitude. First we go through David's backstory in detail, and then go through his character traits and what he's like personality-wise. Here we go. In 1902, George Jackson Churchwood, the chief mechanical engineer of the Great Western Railway at the time, introduced new class of 460 express passenger locomotive. The prototype for the class, number 100, Dean, was built at Swindon Works. After a couple more prototypes and rebuilds, success is finally achieved, so the 2900, or Saint class, was born. Number 2920, Saint David, is rolled out of Swindon Works in September of 1907 as part of the third batch of locomotives. David's life on the Great Western Railway is rather uneventful. Throughout the years, he had a couple rebuilds, including an extended smokebox and outside steam chests. When more powerful express locomotives start to take over in the early 30s, such as Castles and Kings, the Saint is put aside to secondary duties. David isn't happy about this at all. A lot of 2900s is used on the mail trains, which David actually found really enjoyable. When British Railways is formed in 1948, David is painted into BR black livery, which he absolutely hates. He's extremely jealous of kings and cathedrals having a BR blue livery. In the early 50s, British Railways start to withdraw on some of the older engines. Saints isn't an exception. In 1952, Saint David is chosen to pull the SLS Saint Special, and this led to Saint David being the final withdrawn Saint in 1953. But that's not the end. Originally, David's supposed to be placed at Barry Scrapyard, but due to its complete overload with engines, David found himself at Scrapyard at Barrow, near the island of Sodor, where he met some of the other engines that I will talk about in the future episodes of this series. In 1961, when Douglas saved Oliver from that same scrapyard, Oliver told Douglas something like, "Hey, you know, there's like loads and loads of engines in that shed over there, yeah, just behind me. Maybe Stopham would be interested." And Douglas is like, "Oh, f me, you like serious, lad?" So David and the other engines moved to Crovan's Gate Locomotive Works for restoration. Since David stayed inside the building, he's quite in good condition, and after a slight overhaul, he was ready to work. But at the time, there's basically no job for him until September 1961, when the biggest loss for the North Western Railway happens. City class locomotive number 3716, City of London, is sacrificed himself in order to save the northwestern region from bankrupt. He is ripped apart, and his parts is donated to the owners of City of Truro and to many other locomotive works across Great Britain. Northwestern region is left without a mail engine. At first, Thomas and Percy tries to double-head the train and failed miserably. Then Sir Charles Thomas had remembered Saint David, who's just been fully restored and was waiting for the job. David is asked to be painted into a livery that he always wanted, BR Blue. Sir Charles also managed to save a fleet of ex-Great Western mail vans from scrapyards or from private owners. At first, most of the Northwestern engines does not fond of their new male engine, mostly because they're used to City of London, but soon learned that David is just like them, just wants to be really useful. In 1968, when Northwestern Region became Northwestern Railway again, many of the engines received some kind of NWR liveries, but some are painted into liveries of their own respective railways, or even fictional liveries. David, for example, is repainted into a fictional BR Blue livery, with lack of black lining, blue painted wheels, and Northwestern Railway numbering and lettering. And that's where we can find David today, pulling the Sodor mail across Northwestern Railway main line, and he won't have it any other way. As it comes to character, David is quite well known for talking in rather aggressive manner. He isn't afraid to tell what he thinks and how he feels, and often talks without thinking, which sometimes can get him into trouble. He sometimes can hurt someone else's feelings even without noticing it. Yeah, so David is your typical guy from your class that tries to be cool when in reality he isn't. Yeah, that's who David is. Now let's talk about something interesting. The voice. As I created David, I knew exactly whose voice he should have. If you watched my ideal voices for Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends video, please go check that if you haven't already, you already know which voice David has. David's voice is Richard Hammond.
What the hell are you? You great gangly knuckled greasy head bag. And now, coup de grace.
But if you want to write to the BBC and say this is some rare type of tree and has to be preserved, you can stick it up your arse.
I don't want you ever to say that to me again.
I would tell him I hate you. I hate the way you steal my wife and my money and my status around here.
And that's David's official lore. I have quite a fun making this. If you want to use David's in your headcanon or stories, that's perfectly fine, free to do it, just give me credits. Leave your opinions in the comments, what do you think of David, and leave your wishes in the comments which OC you want to see next. Perhaps Alan, or Kent, maybe County of Arlesdale. You decide. Goodbye.